The Minecraft 1.20 snapshots are currently rolling out, and I wanted to teach you how to use some of the things in the update. Because the blocks and items that have been added this time around are honestly really good and have so many different things that you can use them for. They're just brilliant, honestly. This time we're going to be focusing on the Chiseled Bookshelf, but I'm also going to have some miscellaneous things at the end of the video. Honestly, this block is so cool. The feature of being able to put books in it wherever you want, that's just such a brilliant feature. It's something that people have been asking for forever now, and we finally got it. It's great. Of course, you can store different types of books in here as well. You can do enchanted books and you can mix and match. It's a really cool way of storing your books in an actual like library type thing. But aside from that, the texturing on the other sides of the bookshelf is just brilliant. There's some really nice details in the sides here, and the top has a nice texture to it too, and the bottom has that same texture as well. So this is actually how we used to do empty bookshelves in Minecraft. We used to use the side of the texture for the loom. We don't need to do that anymore because we actually have a block that is meant to look like an empty bookshelf, and yeah, that is a much better block than the loom. So here are just a couple of blocks it matches with very well. Of course, because it's like a wooden type block, it matches best with more wooden type blocks. Basically the same color as oak. It matches very well, but it also matches with spruce to give it a little bit of a pop of more lighter color in there, but the actual darker part inside matches well with spruce and the dark oak. The wood of the mangrove it matches well with. Obviously the red of the mangrove planks and stuff it doesn't match as well with. Yeah, it's just a nice additional detail block. Because this is a singular block, most of the designs here are going to be mostly detail focused. So here I have a couple of designs for floors here that incorporate the Chiseled Bookshelf. Top of the Chiseled Bookshelf is just such a good block. It has that tiled effect which I really like in floors. You can do some very interesting things with the Chiseled Bookshelf here. This one is just literally just a checkerboard pattern with the oak planks, but you can also use probably something like the stripped oak as well, which has that tiled effect. It's just another detail block that lets you experiment a lot with different patterns for your floors. So you're not just using that regular wooden plank floor, you can mix it up a little bit by using some different details. The top of the beehive as well is quite a good texture to use if you want it's still kind of a wooden plank-ish texture, but if you want maybe a more lighter version of the wooden planks, that is also an option. The beehive also lets you rotate the texture, so you can do some things like that as well, where you have be one line like down and one line sideways. You know, you can really go wild with the different options here. It makes a very good corner when you're doing like the edge of a room here. I do like to put a kind of trim around the edge of my floors like this. I always kind of struggle to know what to put in the corner. I've generally done that, but I've never really thought that looks very good. This is quite a good block though to just bridge that corner. It's quite an ornate looking little like intricate pattern on there. And here we have another flooring design that kind of incorporates everything I just mentioned over there. We've got the beehives, the bookshelves of course, and the stripped oak. It's a cool pattern I think, and again there are so many different combinations you can do. I've just shown you like 3. Also, since the bottom of the Chiseled Bookshelf has the same texture as the top, any of these designs for floorings could also be used for ceilings. I think any of these 3 I've shown would be excellent for ceilings. As well as flooring, you can definitely use the Chiseled Bookshelf in walls. This is a very simple example of it just being used as a trim at the bottom. That kind of horizontal texture is a very good thing for a trim, I think. And here's another wall design that mixes and matches the full version of the Chiseled Bookshelf with the regular bookshelf. Of course, if you wanted even more variation, you could even take some of the books out of the Chiseled Bookshelves. That just lets you have as many different variations as you can possibly think of. And it just gets rid of the kind of like constant repeating texture of like if you put the same block next to each other, you just start getting that like really ugly repeating texture. And this is another example using the beehive for some extra detail. I think the front of the beehive looks a lot like a little drawer that you can pull out with that dark strip there looking like a handle. It definitely looks like some kind of filing cabinet or drawer, and it's definitely appropriate, I think, to have those in a kind of bookshelf like this. Breaking the bookshelves up like this, where you have the kind of vertical sections, I think is very nice. And this is just using the side texture of the bookshelf itself. Here we have a basic concept for an interior using the chiseled bookshelves, just a library. That's kind of what I went for here. Might be part of a base, obviously this is meant to be a doorway leading into another room. But if you wanted a kind of like enchanting area, you might want to put it inside the library like this. And the chiseled bookshelves fit in here perfectly. We're using the regular bookshelves as a block in here, we're using the lectern as well because they fit the theme, paintings, jukebox, just things that kind of fit that more like intellectual, old worldy theme. Very simple bookshelf design, you just got some stripped oak going down the middle, and to provide a little bit more contrast with a darker colour, we're using some dark oak there. Oh yeah, I also had an interesting idea here of a unique way to store your enchanted books. Because these blocks let you put enchanted books into them, you could have like a kind of labelling system here. So this row here would be for mending books, this row could be for Swift Sneak. It's an interesting, different way of storing your enchanted books. Sure, it's less efficient technically, but I think it looks nice, and that's kind of what I'm going for here. I'm going for something that's useful, but also aesthetically pleasing, and also makes sense in your world. If you would store your books in a library. While I'm on the theme of libraries and enchanting and stuff, these blocks should definitely be able to be used to power an enchanting table. Like, I think that's a big missed opportunity that they've not added that yet. And of course, we're still in the snapshot phase, so it's definitely possible that they might add this in a future snapshot. I think it would be extra cool as well if, say you had some Protection 1 books. Like, you're not gonna enchant something with a Protection 1 book in an anvil, most likely. You could take these books and actually put them into the bookshelves surrounding the enchantment table. It would increase the likelihood of getting that enchantment in the enchantment table. And the more protection books I put in the surrounding bookshelves, the higher chance I would have of getting protection in the enchantment table. The enchantment meta recently has been overwhelmed with villager trading halls and anvils, and hardly anyone uses the enchanting table anymore. But I think this block would be a prime opportunity to give some extra use to the enchantment table. You could even put books in there like Swift Sneak and Mending and all the books that you can't normally find in the enchantment table or in villages. What do you think? Is that a good idea? Is that a really bad idea? Let me know in the comments. So now we're gonna move on to some redstone applications of the chiseled bookshelf. So here we have a little puzzle that I created. See if you can pause the video and figure out which book you have to put into the bookshelf there to make this door open. So if you pause the video, you might have figured out that it's the blue book, and you know that because that is the one that appears the most in the 3x3 grid here. It's the one in the bottom right hand corner. Putting the book in there opens the door. And that's a very simple, interesting little puzzle, I think. So this is super simple. It's literally a comparator coming off here into two pistons that open the door. And the door will stay open as long as this book is the last one either put in or taken out. You can close the door again by putting a different book in. I tried for hours to make a combination lock system using this block and failed miserably. I am not a redstoner, but I'm sure you could definitely make a very, very interesting combination lock using this. Okay, here's a more like aesthetic redstone use for this. The chiseled bookshelf actually acts as an immovable object. Similarly to tile entities like the furnace or the barrel, they cannot be moved by pistons, and they also cannot stick to slime. Similarly to things like glazed terracotta. The piston pushes the stone block fine, but it cannot, for the life of it, push the chiseled bookshelf. If you're building something that requires slime blocks, maybe you have a redstone contraption integrated into your build, maybe you want to have your immovable objects as something that'll fit in your build palette. If you're using a build palette that has this kind of oak aesthetic to it, the chiseled bookshelf is a good block to use as your immovable object here. For example, if you wanted to build a slime block launcher in your oak themed build, this is a very good block to fit in with that palette. Previously, you would have had to do something like this with the barrel, or something maybe like that with the glazed terracotta, which just doesn't look as nice in my opinion. It's a very, very niche use, but I think it's very cool that they're adding more immovable blocks. So that's all I have for the chiseled bookshelf. I'm sure there's many, many more things you can do with it, and many different variations of the things that I've shown in this video, especially with the redstone side, because again, I'm not a redstoner, I'm more of a builder. But we're not done yet. This update has added some more blocks. We have the pitcher plant, we have the torch flower, I got the piglin head, and also the sniffer egg. Because I have a lot less ideas for these things, but I still wanted to show a couple of builds that maybe you wouldn't have thought of yourself. First, let's start off with these two. I wanted to show a few different colour palettes for these. They fit in with a lot of different plants and things like lichen, the tube coral. The whole vibe of the pitcher plant fits very well with the twisting vines, I think. It just like has that alien vibe to it that fits very well. And basically any of these blocks on the floor here go pretty well with it. But even if you don't have a blue colour palette, this would be a very good way to add some extra colour. Here's the same thing but with a torch flower. The colours in this one are really nice. We've got the green in the leaves, but then we got some purple pixels at the end, and then we have the red, orange and yellow in the actual flower part. We've got the more yellow end here with the sunflower and the coral blocks and the dandelion. Got the orange tulip, red tulip, and then, you know, the red coral, rose bush. And these are a few blocks which it might fit in with, but there are definitely more. I think it goes quite well with the crimson, especially with that purple in the leaves there. But equally it goes well with the strip bamboo. It's a very versatile plant and it can go in pretty much any environment you want to put it in. In terms of like specific builds that these can go into, this is kind of a greenhouse build here. We've got some like irrigation machines here. Maybe you're trying to grow more of these plants and cultivate them. I quite like how the hopper looks like a little spout that might shoot some water out, and then you got some lights behind the trapdoors here. But as I said, there's an infinite number of builds that these blocks can fit into. The pitcher pod and the torch flower seeds also fit into this kind of build as an item. They're very interesting textures as like a little seed, an extra little detail that you might want to use in an item frame like that. And of course they go well with the particles from the spore blossom here. Next I want to move on to talking about the sniffer egg. It's a very interesting block. It's probably not the best block to use for decoration. It's not a full block and it's a very kind of weird shape, and it only ever faces in one direction in your world. No matter how much you try to rotate this, it will only ever face in one direction. So after a while it will hatch and it will disappear forever. So yeah, not the best block for building with, but it is good in some redstone contraptions, and as you know, not the best redstoner, but it can be used in some timers. And these timers are quite slow, but every so often, randomly, it will output a redstone pulse from this that can be used to randomly trigger whatever. You could have it trigger like a firework at random times. It's a one-time timer because these will eventually hatch and then be gone. So maybe if you want like a trap to set off, and obviously you only want the trap to set off once. Oh yeah, also placing the sniffer egg on a moss block makes it hatch faster than placing it on any other block. That's why I've got one on a moss and one on a stone. There you go, you saw the redstone pulse being outputted there after the egg cracked. And last but not least, I have a singular build for the piglin head. For any of the head blocks in this game, you can always put them on a spike. And I know that's a little bit morbid, but it's something you might see if you have a kind of defensive fort or something, especially in like olden like medieval times. They did put heads on stakes to ward off intruders. So maybe if you're building a fortress defending against the piglins, you might want to put a piglin head on there to kind of warn the piglins, yeah, you know, you don't want to come in here. And you can also put the piglin head on a wall as well if you want it in that way rather than on the spike. And overall I think this wall design is quite cool anyway. Again, a very niche use, but I thought I should show something at least. But I actually want to show something else you can do with the piglin head here, and actually any of the heads in the game. If you power it on top of an oak block, it makes the sound effect of the mob. So you could probably use that in some kind of redstone contraption if you're building like a mini game and you want to add some sound effects. And an additional feature with the piglin head, the ears actually wiggle like they do on the actual piglin. Maybe over here, if you wanted to add some extra animation to your build, you could have it like that. You could have the piglin head wiggling, which is quite funny looking actually. But maybe it's like the ears are swaying in the wind or something. I don't know. But well, yeah, those were a few like miscellaneous things here. I just wanted to come up with at least one idea for all of the new blocks. And we've also had all the different ideas for the chiseled bookshelves, which I'm really proud of and I really like. And I hope any of the things in this video have inspired you in some way. I've actually inspired myself today because a few of the builds in this video I actually came up with on the spot. The idea about the enchantment table I came up with while recording. Be sure to click that subscribe button to catch future videos like this and also videos in my survival world. I do have a Patreon if you want to donate, and I'm thinking of maybe making a Ko-Fi as well for one-off donations. It'll just help me at this this stage when the channel is quite small to make these videos on a more sustainable basis. And I have a lot of different ideas for videos. I'm putting out one a week, so subscribe to keep up with them. I really want this channel to be a success. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, which will most likely be a survival world video.